What is going on, guys? So today I'm going to be talking about signals and slots in Qt Creator. Now, we're not going to only work with one class to emit the signal and then the slot. We're actually going to work with two classes, where the one class will emit the signal and then the second class will be able to receive that signal and then react to it. Okay, and another thing, this is going to be a raw video, so my apologies if I um, say wrong grammars. Okay, so now let's start. So we have the Qt Creator here. Now click New, and then from the application, click the Qt Widgets application. Click Choose, and then here you can change the name of your project. So I'm just going to name this Signals Slots. Okay, and also the project location, you can change it. Click Next. If you're done, click Next. And here we're just going to name the class as the sender. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that later on. So we have the base class as the Q main window. Click Next, click Next, click Next, and Final. Finish, I mean. Okay, so now we have this signal slots project. Now, let's talk about first what it really is a signal and a slot in Qt Creator. Now, I can only think of an illustration here to be able to understand this algorithm. We need to have illustrations. Okay, so we have the first person, let's say. We have the first person here. Now, this person has a cell phone. Okay, and the only feature of his cell phone is one button, okay? To make it simpler. So now, when this button is pressed by the first person, it's going to send a message or a warning message, okay? Now, we also have second person who has a cell phone as well. Now, basically, their cell phone is connected to each other. So, therefore, when the first person pressed the button, it's going to send a message, and this second person will receive that message. And actually, he can react to it. Now, in this illustration, we've talked about, or we've already discussed what a signal and slot means in Qt Creator. Okay, so let's analyze this. So now in the first person, as you can see, when this first person presses the button, it's going to emit this warning message. So therefore, this first person, when he pressed that button, is going to be our sender. Okay? Now, when this is pressed, it's going to send a warning message. So therefore, the warning message is actually the signal. Okay? Now, the second person receives that warning message, which makes him the receiver. Okay? And then he can react to it. So therefore, it is the slot. Okay? So here we have the signal and slot. So let's do this. Now, let's do this in a more normal way in the Qt Creator. Some task problems. Now, for example, we are tasked to just open the second window from the first window. So this is the first window, which is the sender CPP file. Now we're going to create another one, which will be the receiver, or the second window. So click File, then click New File or Project, and then under the Qt, we're going to select Qt Designer Form class. So click New, choose, and then here you want to choose the Q widget form template. Click Next, and then here I'm just going to name this Receiver. Then click Next, and click Finish. All right, so we have this receiver.ui now, and we also have this header and then that CPP file. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the sender UI, and then we're just going to modify this. Let's make this smaller and then remove these menu bar and taskbar. We don't need them. So here, the only function or the feature here is going to be the button. So let's say open first window, or actually, my bad, open second window. All right, and actually, let's just put an indication that this is really the first window. So let's have a label here, first window. All right, okay, we have that. Okay, so now let's just name this as enter. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the receiver.ui. So let's just have an indication that this is the second window. Second window. All right, so we're not gonna change anything here because this is the receiver, so he can only receive the signal, right? So go back to the edit. Now we have this. Okay, so now this is very important. I want to clear this first out. So if you go to the receiver header and then sender header, you're gonna be able to see this Q object macro. So as you can see, we have this. Now, basically, we're gonna use what we call connect function in Qt Creator to be able to connect them. Okay, so as I said, the first cell phone and the second cell phone should be connected to each other. So therefore, it made us possible with this. Okay, so basically, the connect function is under the Q objects. That's why. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the signals and slots in Qt Creator. Now, what I usually do is to create the slot first before the signal, because there's a lot of things that we are going to do with the signals, but in slots we can actually just create the slot and then create the reaction. Okay, so go ahead and go to the receiver.header, because this is going to be where the reaction would be. So here, to be able to create slots, you're just going to call the public or the private, but I like to do this in public so we can have access to it anywhere outside or inside the class. Okay, so we have public slots. Now I'm just going to name this void, and this is going to be show window. So this is going to be the reaction. I just want to show this window. All right, so go back to the receiver.cpp, because we're going to call that. So let's say void, then under the receiver class, we're going to access that. So show window. All right, now we have that, and then we're just going to use the show function to be able to show it. Okay, so we have our slots now. Isn't that easy, right? Okay, so that's not going to be easy in the sender, or basically the signal. Okay, now we have the sender. Now, as I said in the illustration before, the first button is going to be the sender when it is pressed. Okay, now this is going to be the sender, and when it is pressed, it's going to give the message. Okay, now that's going to be the trigger in the push button. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about that later on, but for now, we're actually going to use the connect function now. You can use this connect function, or you can call this Q object and then access the connect. Okay, you can do that. All right, now I'm just going to do this because I'm lazy. All right, so we have 4 parameters here. We have the sender, we have the signal, we have the receiver, and then we have the slot. Okay, so basically that's the member. Okay, so that's the member. It can also be the slot, because that's going to be the slot. All right, so now the sender here is obviously our button, right? So we have the enter that we've created here. So this is basically named enter. So that's why we have that here. Okay, now basically the signal here is when pressed or when clicked. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go to the browser. We're gonna look something here. So go to the Qt documentation and go to this, and then here we're just going to search QPushButton. All right, now QPushButton class, and then here, if you go down, as you can see, we have public slots, but we have no signals here that we can use. So as you can see here, if you cannot see any signals under a class, you go back to this at the top, and then we have the inherits. Now it inherits the Q abstract button. So if we press this, we can actually access this through the Q push button. Okay, because it inherits it. So if you go down again, so as you can see, we have the signals. Now I believe this is the clicked that we are going to use. So if we click this and see the description, so we have the signal is emitted when the button is activated. It means press down, then release. So this is what we are looking for. So we're just going to access this clicked, and this is going to be the signal. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to the Qt Creator. So we have %Q push button, and from the Q push button, we can actually directly access this without getting or accessing the Q abstract button first. Okay, so we have that. Now we proceed to the receiver. So the receiver would be the this receiver.h. Okay, so how can we access this receiver.h? You can actually, there's 2 ways. Okay, you can either put this or access this in the header, or you can actually access this in the CPP file. But for now, I'm going to do this here. So we need to include the header of the receiver here. So we have that. Now here we are going to initialize the receiver class. So we have the receiver here, and then put the pointer here. So we have the receiver. I'm just going to name this in lower cases, and then new receiver. And then we have this receiver now. So let's call this receiver. Okay. And then we did include the receiver. So basically, we can access the receiver class, and then we can get the show window that we've created, and then there you go. So as you can see, it has been created here. So we have this, right? So it's already here as well. So there you go. So now I include you should include the ampersand here, so to be able to remove the error. So as you can see, we have that. Now, okay, so if we run this, all right, let's just wait a minute. And there you go. You have this first window. Now, if we press this open second window, voila, you have the second window. But there is a problem. We still have the first window, and we want this to get rid of, right? So let's go back to our code. Now we can actually reuse this signal to have one signal with just two slots. Okay, so we can have two slots here with just using one signal. So let's go to the sender header, because we are just going to close this first window. So we're just going to have a reaction to this first class. So let's go ahead and go here, and then let's just create public slots again. So void close window. Okay. So here in the sender.cpp file, we're going to call that void sender under the sender. We're going to access that. So we're just going to close it. Now, you make sure you use the close every time you close a window here, because if you use destroy and hide, there's going to be a potential leak memory. So let me show you later on. Okay, so here now we have we are going to connect it as well. So we have UI enter, and then Q push button here, and then we're going to access the signal as clicked, and then this time we're not going to use the receiver, because there that is not our slot. So the receiver is basically this. Okay, so this is basically the main window. Okay, so Q main window. So here we're going to access the sender class, and then from there we're going to access the close window. All right. So I forgot about the ampersand again. So we have that. Now we have that. So if we run this, so as you can see, we have the open second window, and if I press this, bam, as you can see, there's no first window anymore. Okay, now basically I want you to pay attention here. If I press the X button, so as you can see, it stopped, right? So if we use the destroy function, it's not gonna stop. Let me show you. And that's gonna be a potential leak in memory. So if you have that, open second window, and then if you close this, bam, it's still running in the background. So that's not really good, all right? So use close every time you do this, okay? So you have that. All right, so now that's amazing, because we've created, or we've used two classes to be able to create connections and use the signal and slots in Qt Creator. Now, what about in the second window? I also want to access the first window and then get rid of this second window. So we're just going to do this in reverse. So there's going to be a little bit difference when doing this in the reverse creation of this. So let's do this. So now, the public slot that we are going to create first is going to be in the sender.cpp file, or in the sender header. Okay, because we want to actually show that window first. So we have the sender header here, and then we're under the public slot, we're just going to have the show window here. Okay, so now go to the sender.cpp. We're going to call that sender show window, and then we're just going to show this. All right, so we have this show. Now we're going to create the signal from the receiver. Now, I told you that there's two ways to be able to call this class, right? Or initialize the class in a different class. So I'm going to explain that now. So let's do this in the header, okay? So we're going to include the sender header. So from here, we're actually going to do this in the private. So call the sender class, you're gonna be able to see this in here. So we have the sender class here. So make sure the capitalization is correct. So we have this pointer still. So we have the sender. We're gonna call this sender. Now in the receiver CPP file. Now instead of basically doing this in here like we did in the sender.cpp file, we're actually going to do this in the show window, because this will be the triggering device when the second window has been, this first window button has been pressed, and then the second window has popped off, right? So we're gonna show it, and actually we're going to initialize the class sender. Okay, so now we have the sender is equal to new sender, and then we have that. Okay, now the only thing that we need to do is to create a button, and that's gonna be the sender, and then has a clicked signal in it. So we have the receiver.ui, and then we're just going to create QPush button here, and click open first window. Okay, so we have that, and then we're just going to name this enter again for no reason. So we have enter that, and then save. There you go. Okay, so let's go back to the edit. Now we have that button, right? So we go back to the receiver.cpp file and then connect them. So we have connect UI, and we're going to call the enter here. And then that's just the same. So QPush button clicked. That's going to be the signal. And then basically we're going to call the sender of class. So we have that. Now we're going to access the sender class, and then from there we're going to have the show window that we've created as the public slot earlier. Okay, so now we have that. Now the only thing that we need to do is to close this window, right? So we're gonna create another slot, not in the sender but in here. Okay, so we have this, and then close window. All right, now we're gonna call this here. So we have void, let's call receiver, and then close window. Okay, and then we're just going to close it. All right, now let's connect this. Connect UI. It's just the same. QPush button. Okay, I forgot the ampersand again. My bad. Okay, so we have the clicked, and then this time this is going to be called in the this. So that's going to be the receiver, and then we have receiver close window. All right, now we're done. So as you can see, the only difference here is we are going to create this when this is shown. Okay, so we have that in here. We've created this because it is in the initialization, right? So let's run this. And as you can see, we have this open second window, and then if you press this, bam, the first window has been removed and the second window has popped off. If you press the open first window again, bam, the second window has been removed and the first window has popped off. So basically, this is how you use signals and slots in Qt Creator. So thank you very much for watching this, and see you guys next time.